hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Great. I'm Nicole Steeves, she, her pronouns, and I am the IT director for Chicago Public Library. Thanks for having me tonight. It's a real pleasure to see all of you out here. The title of my presentation was really inspired by what Shy Hack Night says is its purpose, and I don't think that you can get a better example of technology for the public good in volume than you will find at Chicago Public Library. So thinking about your purpose and what we do, what I want to tell you about tonight is how we make it happen, because there is a lot that goes into providing technology for the public good in library spaces. So let's go through it. The first thing it takes is people, really, really wonderful, dedicated people. My department, Information Technology, for several years was part of CPL's General Administration section. We treated it primarily as something that supported staff and like a department that you might find in any organization, like HR or finance, accounts payable. And that worked out well in many ways. But in my 3 years in this position, what's become clear is that although, of course, we support staff, we're there for staff, ultimately, the IT department's mission is the same of that of the library, which is to support the residents of Chicago in pursuit of lifelong learning and literacy. And so with some changes that happened in the organization, we're now part of what's called the Library Operations and Patron Experience Department. You'll hear me refer to it as LOPE. So I report to the Deputy Commissioner of LOPE, and I work very closely with two assistant commissioners in the department. One is the Assistant Commissioner for LOPE, meaning that person oversees all of the frontline operations. When you come into our libraries and you see pages and clerks and librarians and library associates, that is Assistant Commissioner's purview. And then the Assistant Commissioner for Facilities. If you're going to provide technology, you have to have infrastructure and spaces and data drops and cabling that allow you to provide that. And our Facilities Assistant Commissioner and I work very closely whenever there are renovations of locations, whenever we're thinking about possible new locations, or just when we want to make a simple change. Nothing is ever simple when you're working with government dollars in very old spaces. So the three of us work very closely on just all public service leadership. And then I have my team. So my three direct reports lead their teams. The first is the Chief Programmer Analyst. That team is responsible for things like the Oracle database, Microsoft 365 administration, which is very complicated when you're doing public computing. We do work closely with the Department of Technology and Innovation, so a little preview for when Nick Lucius is here next month. But we work with them to provide Microsoft 365 for CPL staff. They do some administrative support, but we have to have a wholly discrete public network as well. So we have Microsoft 365 administration within our library staff. So that means just making images and provisioning them when they have to go out to our thousands of devices. It means managing all of the accounts. It means setting up single sign-on every time we have a new technology service. And they are also now getting into the business of developing Power Apps. So that's something that we do in-house at the library. My next team is led by the Principal Telecommunications Specialist. This is our network lead. This team is getting us online all the time. So they are working closely with AT&T, Palo Alto, making sure that our circuits are working. We have high-speed internet that we're offering at 81 locations across the city, in all 77 neighborhoods, and we're also offering Wi-Fi access in all of those locations. So this group is sometimes addressing something as simple as a frayed data cable, and something as complex as upgrading all of our circuits so that we can have 1 gig uploads. So they're covering a lot. And then my third team, that's the help desk manager. He's got a couple of sub-teams. One is the help desk itself. This group is taking about 7,000 tickets per year reported by staff. They support staff directly by phone, by email, by internet, and they will sometimes do troubleshooting over the phone for simple things like a password reset. But they are also then creating the tickets in ServiceNow, and if it's something that requires a hands-on touch, the other team within the help desk manager department, this is 5 people who are going out to all 81 locations, touching all of the machines whenever that's what it requires to do troubleshooting, and they're doing all of our rollouts, which I'll talk a little bit more about. So this is the team. This is what it takes. You might have noticed I did not mention library-specific technologies. This is all pretty conventional IT in terms of what my team is offering. When my team, IT, was part of the administrative department, one of the things that split out were library-specific technologies, because what has come to pass with those is that instead of having those handled in-house, there are librarians whose job is to have a vendor relationship and vendor management role. So for example, our ILS, which is what controls all of our patron accounts, our library collections, there's one librarian who manages that vendor, and the vendor does all of the development, the troubleshooting, the rollouts, creates all of the testing and training environments for us. So they work in a separate department called Content Collections and Access. Another example of that is our website. It does not really fall under what IT does, because we have a vendor called BiblioCommons that does our website and our public catalog, also our ebooks and database resources for library users. That's also part of Content Collections and Access. Now, I work very closely with these folks because we have to make sure that our network environment can handle what they need, and not very many of them are explicitly technical people. They are committed librarians who understand what users need, but they also need a lot of support in terms of how to even, what does it mean to have a vendor relationship, and what are service level agreements, and how do we make sure that what we're doing is working for the public, how do we handle changes in operating systems, etc. So close relationship with them, but a separate. So I am the IT director. What does that mean? What am I doing? A big part of my job is planning. I gather that a lot of you are involved with development of software. That's my background before I was in libraries. We don't do a lot of development, but we still have to have a roadmap. Our roadmap really coming down to rollouts and what's our capacity for them. In my 3.5 years as IT director, we have replaced all 4,000 devices for staff and patrons. We have added close to 1,000 laptops. We've replaced every printer. We have upgraded every patron scanner, and we have expanded our Wi-Fi capabilities. That's a lot of work for not very many people. So what our roadmap looks like is really, okay, these 2 months are going to be rolling out Windows 11 to the patron computers. That's what we're in the middle of right now. And then we're going to give the team a break. And we're just going to focus on tickets. And then about 2 weeks later, we're going to do the next rollout. So that's what our roadmap looks like. And I work very closely with our help desk manager to accomplish that. I'm also managing our budget. I have a reasonably good budget. Can always be better, but that pays for all of our network capabilities across all of our locations. It pays for printing. It pays for the patron scanners. It pays in some part for our PC and laptop hardware, but that's another place where we're very closely connected to the Department of Technology and Innovation. Their budget covers the hardware, PC and laptop hardware for city departments, including us. But we have to be able to replace those. Sometimes we have to supplement it. And then, of course, there are any number of peripherals that have to come into a technology environment. So my budget handles that. Oh, and all of our software licensing as well. So consultation, I mentioned that I work very closely with the 3 librarians who have the vendor relationships and content collections and access. One of the things we wanted to make sure we were caring for overall throughout the library when we went from administration to the Lope department was making sure that senior staff had need to come to for consultation, because I think all of us know at this point, if you have a strategy for your organization, that means you have an IT strategy. If you are doing a project, that means that there's an IT element to your project. And with librarians, that's not always instinctive. And so I'm always there to act as a consultant or consigliere, take a pick, to help people understand what it's going to take to accomplish what they're after. Sometimes that's as simple as knowing you can't just move one computer from one data port to another, because then you will not have any connectivity anymore because we have to carefully manage all of our data ports. That's a very simple example. And sometimes it's as big as understanding, a multi-million-dollar contract. So a lot of consultation. And then similarly, you have to have an IT culture. We are bringing literacy to the residents of Chicago. It's our mission. It's our primary mission. That includes digital literacy. There is almost no living in this world. Hats off to the folks who can do it. But most of us are living in a world where technology is required to live our lives. That means that Chicago Public Library staff have to be able to assist anyone who's using technology. So long before I was in this position, I was a librarian. I did do frontline work. I've been a library director. So I have some idea of what it's like to work directly with the public. And I know how important it is to feel confident in what you have to do to show somebody else how to use technology. So I've really committed myself to creating trainings, taking vendor trainings and absolutely remixing them so that they are appropriate for our technology environment, making videos with my face, just showing people over and over and over how to accomplish tasks. And one of the things I'm proudest of, to help foster teams adoption, however you feel about it, it's what we have. But to help foster that adoption and to foster the IT culture, just almost a year ago, we launched what we call the Tech Talk Teams channel. We have 1,000 people, and a lot of people have the same kinds of questions. So my team that's handling tickets, those are things that are broken. They're not really advisors, but we have 1,000 people who can help each other. So we developed the Tech Talk Teams channel for a peer-to-peer consultation, and I oversee that environment so I can comment and add specific direction if people aren't sure where to go. And it's been wildly successful. We send out weekly tips, and people are really participating in an IT culture in a way that they never have. I have to manage all of our software portfolio, have to know what all licenses are, have to know what's going on to our network, making sure everyone's adhering to policy. And special projects. This can be literally anything, but the two biggest ones in my tenure so far can you all picture the Harold Washington Library Center?
Oh, yeah.
It's a city block, right?
Yeah.
It had wiring, data cabling from 1990 up until about a year ago. So we had really bad in that building. And with the support and funding from Department of Technology and Innovation, I led the team that demoed and then replaced 85.6 miles of data cabling throughout the entire building. It was the first. No one understands that. It was the first top-to-bottom infrastructure project that the Harold Washington Library has gone through since its construction. So that was really exciting. And then the other thing we've brought system-wide that just went online, the first location went online last August, so almost a year. We now have foot traffic sensors. So we know exactly how many people are in each facility at any given time, and also just a door count for going in and out. They also can measure if someone's head, they look at tops of heads, the sensors, so no facial recognition. but they can see if someone is above or below 4 feet tall, so that gives us some estimate of how many children are coming into the building, which is really important because in summer, our numbers go up wildly because of summer reading, and now we can actually see in real time when those children are coming into the library. library. So really exciting. A little bit more just about the sheer volume of what we are doing at Chicago Public Library. So these are some stats from 2024. Over 1 million PC sessions on our public machines. A PC session is an up to 1 hour session that you can register with your library card or with a guest pass. Every library card or guest pass can have up to 2 per day throughout the entire system. So more than 1 million of those in our public environment. 4.2 million Wi-Fi sessions, up from about 3.5, 3.6 in 2023, for 2 main reasons. One, of course, people coming back into public spaces post-pandemic, but also because we have launched mobile printing at all of our sites. So people who would have otherwise had to go onto a PC to then reset their Gmail password because no one knows their Gmail password, can now print directly from their mobile devices when they come in, so they connect to the Wi-Fi to do that. 5.5 million pages printed. We offer 10 free pages of printing per library card or guest pass per day, and then a very small fee for additional pages beyond that. There's a small number of people are printing more than 10 pages per day. So just a huge number of people who come into print because who has a printer at home anymore, except for the IT, but very few people. And 1.4 million scans on our public scanners. These are free to use, free to scan to email, free to scan to thumb drive, they do translation. If you choose to print from them, treat them like a copy machine. It's the same as printing, 10 pages free per day, and then a small fee for anything above that. 2,000 public PCs, all with Windows 11, as we have end of July, we're almost there. Microsoft Office on all of these, and new to us, Copilot Chat in the Microsoft Edge browser. We all have a lot of feelings about AI. I get it. But the reality is, when you're helping the public, if you believe that digital literacy is part of your mission, you have to make it available to people, you have to be able to support it. So my next big initiative, starting at the end of this month, will be creating CPL's AI ambassadors, which is a group of about 30 people who are going to help staff know how to manage this tool. Staff support, 2,000 staff devices, staff training, phone support, and I didn't put the number here, but about 7,000 tickets per year from staff in deployment. I think that this sentence really encapsulates, though, the most important thing that we're doing. We are the largest provider of free broadband with service connection in every neighborhood. 81 locations spread across all 77 community areas in Chicago. We're really proud of that. People report over and over and over that this is the main place where they come for internet besides their phones. And so we're really excited for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means and how people are getting on. What you see here is a map of Chicago divided into our 5 districts. This is how we have district chiefs who are kind of regional managers of these 5 areas, and then there are branches within them. The numbers that you see around the edge, each of these districts, these are the top 3 PC sessions from 2024 at these locations, and then I've also included, we have 3 regional libraries, one on the west side, Ledler, north side, Silver, south side, Woodson, plus our central library. If I say the sentence, every map of Chicago is the same map, you've heard this before, you've probably heard it before here. We all know this. But I want you to look at this map. I especially want you to look at 2 numbers. Southeast side, Whitney Young Branch, 21,000 PC sessions. North side, Edgewater Branch, 26,670 sessions. When we are looking at strict numbers of usage of our PCs, it is equitable and huge across the entire city. I do acknowledge that if I took these numbers and did a rate by population, we'd start to get that familiar Chicago map. But for my purposes and my team's purposes, all we have to look at is the numbers, because this tells us no matter what we do, we have a high, similar volume across every neighborhood in the city, which helps us commit to equitable access and equitable speeds in every single neighborhood, and they get used. So this is something I'm just really proud of. I don't know much about my love. Sorry. But for the last 5-ish minutes, what I want to bring to you, and part of why I wanted to do this at all, I would like to share with you some of the questions that I wrestle with as the IT director for CPL, because I think that a thoughtful group like this could just have some insights that I would love to hear. So I'm going to just introduce you for the next 5 minutes to the things that fill my day between meetings in my brain. All right, so what does a new library look like in 5, 10, or 15 years? Are mobile devices the future of public computing? We've already seen this incredible impact that mobile devices have on how people use our Wi-Fi and how they're using printing in our libraries. So should I be offering mobile devices to borrow? How do you manage that? It's very expensive. They walk, but we know that mobile devices are how people interact with the internet. So how do we do that? No answer, just an open question. How do we retrofit our libraries for a changing network environment? We have buildings like Blackstone in Hyde Park, the Walker Branch in the Walker neighborhood on the far south side, incredible, beautiful buildings. Hall Branch at 48th in Michigan, that were over 100 years, they're nearly 100 years old, or over 100 years old. And they cannot handle, or they were not built to handle internet access. We make it work, but how do we continue to do that and continue to upgrade without sacrificing the historic value of these buildings? A question to consider. Our PC is just going away. I know I just showed you my map, but I'm so proud of it. And my million sessions at our locations. But part of the reason we have so many PC sessions is that we offer PC sessions. Is that the thing that we should be offering? Is there some other way we should be offering access to the internet? Food for How will assistive technology change? You may know that in the Harold Washington Library Center downtown, we have a gem of something called the Assistive Resource Technology and Talking Book Center. And they have these incredible tools to help people with various disabilities get onto the internet, use Braille computers, print in Braille, lots of talking devices. They're very cool, but there's only so many of them. We have some assistive technology in every location, but as the internet and online life becomes the only way to interact with society in many ways, to accomplish many of our goals, our interactions with the government, then how will we continue to make sure that assistive technology is equitably shared throughout the city? A challenge. And good old it. So let's talk about it. How do we make AI available to Chicagoans while honoring library values like privacy, copyright, and environmental consciousness? Is it imperative that we educate the public to stave off a greater digital divide? Yes. I don't wrestle with that one. The answer is just yes. We do. We have an obligation. We have to make a commitment to it. I do have a chart of the environmental impact of every AI prompt that I put in, and I'm trying to be careful about it. But we have an obligation to make sure that the people with the least access, the least support, the least digital skills have a place to learn about this so they don't get left behind. I'm thinking a lot about how AI aligns with what we already offer. One of the highest reported interactions or reference questions that we get around technology have to do with jobs. And that means making resumes, applying for jobs, preparing for job interviews. Every single one of these has been maybe forever changed by AI. I don't know if you've had an AI interview yet in your job seeking, but people who have, this is a group that I will venture to say is prepared for that. The people who come to Chicago Public Library in general are not. And so we have an obligation to prepare them specifically for how to access work. This one's the closest to my heart. Can an AI agent solve our translation needs? The city and the library have made enormous steps forward in offering print translations, in the most commonly used languages citywide. But in Rogers Park alone, there are more languages spoken than I can ever dream of translating for manually or hiring for. And so I am desperate for AI agents to make it easier for people who have come to Chicago, want to make a life here, have equitable access to library services. I think AI translation is going to be the tool to do that, and I'm just waiting for the right, fighting for it, not just waiting for it, fighting for it, the right tool to make sure that we reach that. I'm just not always sure. Thank you. Yes.
I'm trying to sneak two quick ones. Any tough advice for someone wanting to get better at vendor management? And off the record, favorite or least frustrating printer brand?
Okay. Top advice for working with vendor management. Vendors are not your friends. They're not. I like them very much. I think that they, these are people who I really think, especially a lot of our vendors, library vendors, hearts fall in our eyes, but they're selling something that is for the public good, but they are still selling something. They have made a service level agreement, and that's not just for fun. 99% uptime is what it takes for our services to work for the people of Chicago. The vendors aren't my friends. I don't think yelling has ever accomplished a single thing. So there's no yelling that's required. But holding people accountable, having the data to show the problem, having access to your tickets that you've opened with them, and making sure that you can count those and see how many that there are, and bringing those calmly and collegially to the vendor is the most effective way that I know of to improve a bad situation. The city has a contract. So I will say, Canon, this is not an endorsement one way or the other. It is the city's contract for printers. So that's what we live with. But we are able to accomplish what we need to accomplish with this contract. Yeah.
To the Wi-Fi internet access that's offered inside the library. Mm-hmm. So the library is open approximately a third to 3/5 of the week. Why not throw a few antennas on your roof and offer internet access after outside of library hours?
So as a matter of fact, everywhere that we are able to let the Wi-Fi signal bleed outside of the building, we do. We have benches outside of many buildings. At the buildings where we know where 24/7 access is especially needed, like our Leckler Regional Branch, we actually do have Wi-Fi access points that are specifically designed to make the Wi-Fi accessible outside of the building. So why not antennas? Because it's really expensive. Is the main reason. These are historic buildings, a lot of them, so not necessarily something we can do. But in the spirit of the question, we do everything that we can to make sure that our Wi-Fi access does lead outside of the building. And we loan Wi-Fi hotspots in the neighborhoods with the greatest need. We are currently seeking a federal grant that will expand that.
What does your department look like? Like you mentioned, like sensors, like occupancy detection. You also do work on like managing like fleet of vehicles, like doing stuff like electrification. Like where does that fall into?
So then you're looking at the overarching umbrella of the entire city of Chicago. So we have two departments in the city that we work really closely with. One is the Department of Technology and Innovation. So they do a lot of they do some of that work, but then there's also, we call it 2FM, that stands for Fleet and Facility Management. That is the department that handles public buildings, public vehicles. So they actually manage that kind of share. They bring electricity. on a small scale, they do some of the data cabling. We work directly with our AT&T vendor to bring data cabling into our spaces, but those are other city departments. So we negotiate with them and work with them, managing, they're managing the same things I am, planning and budget all the time, but that's what we work with.
You gave a long list of things that you've done in the 3 years since you've been there.
Yeah.
Did you come in wanting to do those things, or did they hire you to do those things, or did you come in and see all this stuff? I mean, it's amazing. I'm really impressed with what you're doing.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. A little from home base, a little from home beach. So just a little bit of background. I had worked at Chicago Public Library for 8 years as a librarian. I left the organization to go be a library director for 6 years in the suburbs, and I came back when this job opened. It had been vacant for, I think, 3 years. And it was post-pandemic, and my department, I didn't really get into all of the shifting around that my department has done, but there was more. I could go on. And so what they were really looking for, I was hired as someone who, I'm a librarian by training, although I had done software development, but they were looking for a librarian who was prepared to deal with the complexity of the organization and to help put the wheels back on post-pandemic. We needed to replace all of the PCs because we couldn't replace the PCs during the pandemic. We needed to replace all the printers because the person who was responsible for the printers had been gone for a couple of years. This is part of the reality of city administration. The positions go empty or go vacant for a while. So I would say that I got hired into it knowing that my familiarity with the system would help get a lot of big jobs accomplished very quickly.
So you knew a little bit. You're an idea.
I don't know. Yes. Yeah.
I really like that map when you said showing the sort of equal usage of all your services. It also made me think about like the city's other more equity access to internet, like the low-cost broadband and stuff like that. And I was curious if there's like different sources of data or program enrollments like that you all are able to use to kind of inform whether or not like more resources should be in one part of the city versus the other, or if there's other like social demographic factors that are you allowed to do that?
We are allowed and encouraged. So, and here's how we break that out. Because of the nature of the AT&T contract for our circuits and for network capability, the kind of internet that we offer in all of our branches is more or less the same. The same speeds, the same approach to it, the same general number of PCs. There's some fluctuation depending on the size of the location. Where we are able to vary what's available are with mobile devices. So loaning mobile hotspots. We base that very much on income, on the availability of internet in the home by zip code and the corresponding branches. So it's where we complement the system-wide approach to internet that we can really attack inequities for internet access otherwise. Yes.
Should I use a VPN on the library Wi-Fi? And so with the city budget fights and things that go on year after year, is there any concern of how those kinds of things might affect your departments?
So, should you use a VPN? If you have the skill and capability, by all means, go ahead. When you are on public Wi-Fi of any kind, not just the library, but any kind, I would guess that this group realizes you are operating at your own risk. That said, I have problems with it. I'm not keeping any secrets here. I'm not aware of a problem. But I never think that people are wrong to be paranoid. Ever. So be paranoid. If you have a VPN and you want to use it, do it. Budget. All of us are going to feel the pinch. There's no secret. Sometimes has shown that there's $1 billion shortfall. There are articles about how we're looking for ways to tighten our belts. That said, I felt nothing but a commitment from the library and from the city when it comes to making sure that we continue to offer digital services across all our locations. I don't think anyone will be better off if their access to the internet, and scanners, and printers, and Wi-Fi is threatened. All of us benefit from having a place for people to go for these services. So, and that is the message I have received.
I just want to say, let's take about 2 more questions, and then we're gonna go on to the next part.
Sure, Sneha. Yes.
You mentioned that you have a chart.
I'm going to ask you to speak up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You mentioned that you have a chart that talks about the impact, like the environmental impact of AI.
I do.
And I'm curious if you have any advice on how to be environmentally conscious while using AI, because it's kind of like you mentioned, we all kind of use it to stay up to date with things, but then there's also the guilt using it.
Right.
Impact.
The guidelines I'm trying to use for myself. You live your life. But I will tell you what I'm thinking about all the time. My guiding principle for AI in libraries is that AI is for people. So if I ask my phone what the Cubs score is all the time. And that's a very small that uses a very small amount of resource, and I can live with it. In fact, it's comparable to what it would be for me to thumb in, what's the Cubs score. So no guilt, no problem. But when I'm working at the library on scale, I don't casually suggest to people that they do massive AI searches in lieu of searching on the internet, because that's where the force multiplier comes in. And so that's why I'm trying to think about where are these areas of librarianship where there's the usage of resource is justifiable because we know that it will serve the people of Chicago. Translation, jobs. Those are number 1 and number 2 for me. And so if you're wondering about how to use AI without it, that's the measurement. Yes.
I have 2 questions, regarding the future. First is, what about books versus ebooks? I'm not sure if that's your department. Not exactly. The second one is, what about social computing? I'm thinking, for example, about community decision making, products like Casino.
So I'll address the first one first. So ebooks versus books. Ebooks have genuinely at last caught on, for sure. This is now just part of our lives. In the last year, CPL we've always wanted more print books than ebooks. Ebooks were on a very steady rise, especially during the pandemic. A lot of people adopted as they were adopting Zoom and other online tools that they might not have done before. Ebooks joined that list, but for the first time in a few years, print books have started to circulate more. So that really comes down to the content collection and access department's decisions about how to spend their budget. Ebooks are very expensive because of how publishers put charges on them for reuse. So sometimes they are metered, sometimes you have them for just a certain amount of time, unlimited use. Either way, they cost quite a bit more than a regular book. So that's a challenge, but we're much like with AI resources, with dollar resources, we're trying to see where our residents are, how we're meeting them where they are, and we know that they're using ebooks, and so we feel like we have an obligation to provide that, and we have no plans to stop anytime soon. For the other one, that's not something that's on my radar.
Question from the chat. It says, it seems to me the limited number of library software databases and systems available, is there an overlap of software needs with other library systems? And if so, how do you maximize cooperation?
So, I would argue, one, that we have a very vast array of databases that are available. I think that our department in that area is doing the best they can with the budget that they have. And when it comes to sharing resources with other libraries, it's a little different. So without getting too far into the weeds about how library systems work in the state of Illinois, there are essentially 3 different groups. There is something called Rails Library System, which is all libraries basically north of I-80 except for Chicago, the Chicago Public Library. Then there is something called Illinois Heartland, which is all libraries south of I-80 that have a cooperative sharing agreement. And then Chicago Public Library is its own library system according to state law and state funding. So where the sharing comes in is that all three of these library systems allow for reciprocal borrowing. Anybody visiting any library, like I could go to Evanston, I think for a long time, I don't know if they still have this, but for a long time, for example, they had like a donor, like a grants database that they were one of only like a handful of libraries, I think, in the country to have. And I was welcome to go there and use it. So it really comes down to awareness of what tools are available and then having the access to those locations. We do try to share things with state budgets.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Nicole. But what's the best way for folks to reach you with more questions that they have?
Oh, sure. If you have questions specifically for me, my email is in the slides, which are on the Chicagoans website and on this video, but it's my first initial N, Nicole. Then my last name, Steeves, which is like sleeves, but with a T. So nsteeves@chicagoans.org. And thank you for having me. What a pleasure.